Welcome back to MotoBlade, guys. Today we are going over why the Kawasaki Ninja 650 is the best sport bike you can buy. Stick around. Alright guys, we are going to go over my top 3 reasons why the Kawasaki Ninja 650 is the best sport bike you can buy. Number 1, you won't outgrow it. A lot of guys, when they come to the sport, they want to start on a sport bike, something smaller, but maybe a 300 or a 400 is too small for them. So they start on a 650. It seems kind of middle of the road. And then there are some guys who are like, well, I'm more of an advanced rider. I don't want to go quite as small as a 300 or 400, but a 650, again, also kind of middle of the road, if you don't want to go all the way for a leader bike. What's the big deal about the 650? Why is it a good place to start, and why won't you outgrow it? The key with the 650 is really cool. The power is very easily controllable for a new rider. Okay, you don't have to rip on this thing. It has a slipper clutch, so it doesn't punish new riders for a bad shift while they're learning how to rev match and how to downshift. The slipper clutch from Kawasaki enables you to have a smooth shift without sliding out your rear wheel and causing a problem. The power being very controllable doesn't mean that it's a slow poke, alright? So we're in 4th gear doing 50. Let's just do a pull from 4th. That's a pull in 4th gear, and you know that's not great. You want a real fast pull, you go from 1st or 2nd, which we'll do up here in a second. You're not going to outgrow this bike in a year or 2. It has so much speed that you're going to have so much fun with it for years to come. You won't outgrow it, but it's easily controllable if you're a beginner rider. If you're a beginner rider, you practice. As you get better, the speed will be there as you increase your riding abilities. If you're already an advanced rider, then you can just have fun with this thing right out of the box, okay? The power is there. I hope I'm about to say makes sense, but the Kawasaki Ninja 650 isn't a baby bike or a beginner bike. It's an advanced riding bike that doesn't punish beginning riders. It's still friendly enough to be used by beginner riders so that they can become more proficient riders. Alright, we're going to do a stop here. Alright, we're going to take off from a stop. I don't even know what the 0 to 60 on that was. I'm going to have to go back and time it. And that's hauling my 230-pound ass around on this thing, okay? So I don't want to hear any complaints about, oh, the Ninja 650, it doesn't have enough power. No, it's got tons of power. Alright? It has plenty of power. In fact, that probably wasn't the best pull because I got the front wheel up. It was a baby wheel. The front wheel was off the ground by about an inch. I felt the handlebars go totally loose there for a second. So it wasn't even the fastest pull I could have had. I should have had my weight even further forward. But still, that was effing fast, man. So you have the power. Now, if you're a beginner rider, you don't have to go balls deep into the throttle, okay? Don't crack your wrist full open. And you can just ride around at normal round town speeds, country road speeds like this. So to sum up, number 1, it's not a beginner bike, but a beginner rider will love this bike because it doesn't punish them for being a beginning rider. Number 2, the features. You get a lot of great features on this sport bike that not all other sport bikes have. Now, of course, every sport bike's gonna have updates every year. Stuff's gonna get better with time. So don't take my word as this being the bike with all the best features, okay? But let's go over a few things it does have. A lot of guys like an analog tachometer. I personally do as well. That's what mine has. Now they've gone to a digital display on the newer Ninjas, so if you like that, great. If not, you can save some money by a version, I think they did that with the new 2020s. So 2019 and before, you can get an analog tach. You get a gear indicator. Not all motorcycles have that. Most sport bikes do, but not all. You get a gear indicator. You get a clock. Not all motorcycles have a fuel gauge. You have a great fuel gauge here. You have an engine temperature monitor. That's important. Even though you're liquid cooled, you want to keep that engine running nice and cool for you. Of course, you got your odometer, your speedometer, and then at the bottom you have a fuel range meter. This is one of those features, again, that is kind of nice for beginning riders. It's not a beginner bike, but it doesn't punish you if you are a beginner rider. Most motorcycles don't have a fuel gauge. It's becoming more common, but if you're buying a used bike from maybe 10 years ago, you might not have a fuel gauge on your bike, and that confuses a lot of people. You know, we've grown up with the luxury of cars and a fuel gauge, so some beginner riders, you know, they'll run themselves out of fuel, not thinking about it, not realizing it. This not only gives you a fuel gauge, but it gives you your range to empty, and it also has this little icon down here telling you when you're riding fuel efficiently. So if you're using this as a commuter, you can maximize your MPG, or maybe you screwed up and you missed the last exit that had fuel, you know, for the next 50 miles, and oh crap, you know, you got to make it to the next gas station or you're going to be pushing. So you can try to keep the bike where it's riding in fuel economy. I'm not actually trying to do that right now, it just happens to be there. So that's the digital display. Let's talk about other features. I mentioned already the slipper clutch, which is really nice if you are a beginning rider and you aren't comfortable or you're not quite perfect with your shifting yet. The bike isn't going to punish you if you accidentally make a bad shift. It's a very nice feature to have, even for an advanced rider, okay? You can make 1,000 perfect shifts, but maybe one time you're coming into a turn high speed and you need to shift, and maybe you don't do it quite right. Having the slipper clutch can save you from having a wheel slide. There's 100. Alright, so I was doing 100 there, and that was 4th gear. I'm sure it probably would have done it in 3rd. So I had still 2 gears left to go. So don't tell me it doesn't have power, y'all. It has lots of power. So in addition to the slipper clutch, you have a nice rear shock, good front shocks. The suspension on this bike, it's not the fanciest thing in the world, but the shocks are very good. Again, I weigh 225, 230 pounds, so the shocks take most of the bumps out of the road for me, except for, you know, major stuff, major potholes and crap like that. The suspension is very good on this bike. Additionally, not all motorcycles, most sport bikes, but not all, come with a passenger pillion and rear passenger pegs. This bike has that. So if you need to carry a passenger, you're already set with a passenger pillion and pegs, and you're good to go. And again, we know it has the power, so if you need to carry 2 people, you're not going to have a problem there. Personally, I wouldn't want to carry 2 people on a sport bike. It's kind of cramped. But if you need to, the bike has the capability, and it comes set up to do so. Last feature we're going to mention under this category is the design of the motorcycle. Kawasaki took a lot of care in the redesign of this motorcycle in 2017. It has great angles, good wind deflection. I did end up putting the taller windshield on here, but that's personal preference. Another great design feature, and this is common to sport bikes, so you're going to have this with all of them, but just to keep in mind, if you live in a hot area, having a sport bike could be an advantage over having something like an air-cooled V-twin cruiser like a Harley or an Indian. Indian Scouts are liquid-cooled, just throwing that out there, as is the Indian Challenger and the FTR. And Harley also makes some liquid-cooled engines now as well, like the Revolution Max and the Street Series bikes. But typically when you think of an American cruiser, they're air-cooled. But if you live in a very hot environment, especially in the summer months, those engines can overheat easily, especially if you have any kind of stop-and-go traffic or you're riding around town. They need a lot of airflow to keep them cool and keep them running well. With a liquid-cooled engine, you don't have that problem. You can still overheat, you know, if you drop your coolant level or you don't pay attention to your oil, so you still have to pay attention to your motorcycle. It's not like you can just abandon maintenance to the wind. But having a liquid-cooled engine will keep you running much cooler if you live in a hot environment. I'm up here in Vermont, doesn't bother me in the least. Right now it's actually 59 degrees, we're riding around here, so it's plenty cool. I wouldn't be worried about any engine overheating right now. But if you live in a place where heat is a concern, that may be another thing to think about in your consideration of purchasing a motorcycle, whether it's a sport bike or a cruiser. Number 3, the last reason this is the best sport bike you can buy. Comfort. I've tried lots of sport bikes. None of them have matched the comfort of the Ninja 650. Kawasaki takes more of a comfort and commuter approach to this bike. Your riding position is not hunched over like you're on a day at the racetrack, okay? Your riding position is more upright, more comfortable for the average user, and you will be able to take longer rides on this than you would other bikes without experiencing fatigue and back pain. That may not be a big deal to some guys. If you're looking for a bike just to take over to the track on track days and race your buddies, you know, that's not a concern. Your concern there is torque and horsepower, which, again, we already showed this bike's got plenty of torque and horsepower. If you're going to go for comfort and you're going to ride this thing around and use it to get from point A to point B quite a bit, comfort is something you should definitely consider. The one thing I did swap out was the seat. I went with a custom Corbin seat. If you guys haven't seen that video, I'll put a link in the description. It's a great option if you do purchase this bike or any sport bike. Corbin makes really good seats. The video's not sponsored by them. I'm just saying they make really good custom seats for almost any sport bike model out there. So any bike you get, consider a custom seat. If not from Corbin, then from somebody. It will add to your riding enjoyment, I guarantee you. Anyway, overall riding position on the motorcycle, on the Ninja 650, very comfortable. Less back fatigue, less wrist fatigue. When you're sitting more upright, your weight doesn't have to be all on your wrists or all in your back trying to support you, okay? It can go down into your butt and your hips. It makes riding a much more enjoyable experience. Number 4, I said this was a 3 video. I'm giving you a 4th as a bonus. 4th reason this is the best sport bike you can buy, the price. They're not outrageously priced when they're new, and there are lots of them made and lots of them available. So you guys can find them used with low mileage in good condition. I bought this used. I didn't buy it new. I bought it used with 200 miles. It wasn't because the bike was bad, but the family who bought it, they ended up having a baby on the way. They decided a motorcycle wasn't for them right now, so they brought it back, traded it in for a car, actually. So I picked this thing up used with 200 miles for $3,000 off of MSRP. Okay, so don't think that, oh, it's a hot sport bike, it's gonna cost a lot of money, or I've got to buy a new one, and you know, to find one that hasn't been trashed by a street Rousey somewhere. No, you can get these bikes used in very good condition that people took good care of for very little money. For a lot of people, motorcycling is a hobby. It's not really like a way of life, and they're not racers. You know, so they keep the bike in the garage. It's more of a weekend sort of thing. They keep it in good condition, so you guys don't have to worry about motorcycles being trashed or a sport bike being, you know, pushed to its limits. A lot of times you can find these things in great condition for very low cost, low mileage, and find yourselves a great deal. So that's going to do it for this video, guys. If there's anything that you think makes this bike amazing, or maybe a different sport bike you'd recommend, let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. I try to reply to as many people as I can. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, please hit that thumbs up button. That helps us crack the YouTube algorithm, promote this video to more people who are interested in the Ninja 650, and we get the views up even higher. If you're not already, please subscribe to the channel. It's the big red button. Click the bell icon next to it. That will give you guys notifications when there are new videos to watch right here on MotoBlade. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, y'all be careful out there. Ride safe, ride on. I'll catch y'all later. Deuces.